recently, we just moved into a new house, and this home that we moved into far exceeds really my wildest expectations. You know, they say when you get old one day, you move into like the home of your dreams or the retirement home. I guess I'm officially old because we were able to move into a beautiful piece of property and a great home. So, but in the process of that, moving into a different space, my kitchen dining room area in this home that we're living in now is bigger than the one that I moved out of. So the table that started this whole conversation, I had to sell. But the table that I sold, it had so many imperfections in it, but they were so intentional. But it was kind of funny because it was kind of lumpy. I had a friend once tell me it was lumpy like mashed potatoes. It was smooth, but yet there were these like waves in it. And maybe when you set your cup down on the table, it wasn't exactly flat. So maybe your cup may or may not have set correctly on the table. But you know what? I loved that table. It was beautiful. Okay, let's just call it designer. But the table had so many intentional, beautiful imperfections that I was just really sad to see it go. And I remember selling the table, and just like the lady that told me when I bought it from her off of Marketplace, and she said, I hope you have as great of conversations around this table as we did. I said the same thing to the lady that bought the table from me on Marketplace. It was kind of like a full circle moment. So when we moved into our new house, in true fashion, I bought another table on Marketplace. But this table had to be bigger. What I realized was that my old table was too small for my new space. So I needed to upgrade. I needed to get a bigger table. And the topic of what we're talking about and inviting people to your table and counting the cost of your table, I needed a bigger table for more people to gather around. And now when people sit at my table, it's smooth. This new table that I have, it's round, just like my old table, but it's very smooth. There are some imperfections. I'll tell you about that later, but it's a smooth surface. And to the person that would just look at the table casually, they would think, oh, this is an upgraded table. But in reality, my new table didn't cost any more than my old table. And oftentimes, I think that we don't actually count the cost of the table. We just look at what's in front of us and we assume, oh, that table has more value than that table, or this table serves more purpose than that. But actually, if I'm counting the cost of tables, it was the imperfections of that table, the smaller table and the other house and the smaller room, it actually had more numerical value to it. And how many times do we look at other people's tables and we think we know the cost that they have counted for their current circumstances? When really what people don't know is when I moved into that table and paid that high value on Marketplace for that small table with all of the imperfections, that I had actually just come off the heels of counting the cost of my own journey. And when I moved into the state of Texas, I moved into the house that we were living in then. And I remember the transition was very hard. See, I had spent years in ministry and I'd spent years creating a life for my family. And my husband is a pilot and he was gone for weeks at a time. And I was raising children and serving in church and staff positions. And I was busy and I was overwhelmed. And and a lot of life happened and hurts happened and all of the things. And I moved into Texas and I threw my hands up and I said, I quit. And I had this conversation, this real, vulnerable, authentic, and honest conversation with my father. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this call that you have on my life anymore. All the dreams we've dreamed about, all the plans that I have planned in my head, and the things that I had been working for, and the schools that I attended and classes that I took. I just threw my hands up and said, I quit. I don't want to do this anymore. What I was saying was, the cost has been too high. What I was telling him was, I have put my blood, sweat, and tears into my life. And I think I look at the value of my life and I think the cost is too much. And I quit. And in my processing with my father, and a lot of tears, honestly, a lot of tears, a lot of saying, can I do something else? Can I just go into the profession and maybe just be a counselor? Can I go back to school and choose another profession? Can I just stick my head in the sand and not do anything at all? Can I be like a wallflower and just sink into the background and be nothing? Because life has been too hard. I remember one day as I was unpacking boxes and navigating my children, putting them in school. My husband was gone again on a trip, and I'm doing the things around the house. And I remember that the Lord prompted me to write down on a piece of paper everything that I had dreamed of doing at one point in time in my life. What did I want to do that I was ready to throw in the towel? So I got out a piece of paper, I sat down, and I started writing things down. Things like, I want to write a book one day. I want to be able to speak to people just like this and have impact. And I made a list of things that I wanted to do. And then I felt like the Lord said, now write down next to that why you don't want to do it. Essentially, what he was saying to me is, we're going to count the cost of the dreams that you have on that piece of paper, because you're ready to throw in the towel, but I want you to lean in a little bit further. It's kind of like he was saying, daughter, come on a journey with me. Come on, let's process this and write down what you're the most fearful of. Write down why you don't want to move forward. So I wrote things down like, I will be embarrassed. If I write a book and if I put a book out there, it could be horrible. People could say I'm a fraud. People could make fun of me. People could reject me. I could be horrible. I could be a really bad communicator. I could be an awful writer. This could be really embarrassing. All of my hopes and dreams could be shattered. So I brought that to the Lord. I remember it, and I wrote it all down, and I thought, oh gosh, it was this sense of like, oh yeah, I've accomplished something here. I've done exactly what he wanted me to do. And sometimes when we go on this journey with our Father, sometimes he takes us down conversations that are a little bit unexpected. So I remember, honestly, this is true. I am not making this up. I had this sense of like pride on the inside, like, oh yeah, this is good. Like, I have done exactly what he wanted me to do. And I've written down what I feel like he's called me to do. I have written down the things that are my biggest fears and my biggest concerns and insecurities. And now when I go before him, he is going to tell me, oh, daughter, I will go before you and I will clear the way for you. It's going to be just fine. So that's what I was expecting. So I sat down and I'm like, okay, God, what are you going to do about this? And I am not kidding. As if he was sitting in the chair with me, or if you're driving, if he was sitting in the car with you, I felt like I heard him say, clear as day, If everything on your list came true, all of the dreams that you had, the fears that you face, if both columns came true, would you still do what I asked you to do? Man, plot twist. Honestly, it was like, I don't know. If I was in a movie, I would have dropped my paper and fallen back in my chair. I mean, I thought, what in the world? Why did you ask me that? Aren't you supposed to go before me? And it was this sense of him saying, yeah, I'm going to go before you, but you live in a fallen world. And people get to make choices sometimes that affect you, and they might say things that hurt your feelings. But you know what? I'm going to be there with you. Will you still take the journey even though someone might reject you, even if someone might turn their back on you? Do you trust that I'm going to be with you through the thick and the thin? See, that's counting the cost. That's counting the cost of your table. Remember, your table that you're sitting at is your history. It's the conversations that you are having, that you are creating a legacy for you and your future family. Your table has had a cost and will continue to have a cost. The imperfections of your table, sometimes I just am imagining maybe some of you thinking about your table, and you think about when I was describing mine and how it was lumpy like mashed potatoes. It almost had kind of divots in it, and you might look at your own life and say, man, let me tell you about the cost of my table. Let me tell you about the costs that I have endured, the friendships that I've lost, the hard things that I've been through, the businesses that have gone under. Let me tell you about the cost of my table. And I want you to know that your cost of your table currently and the table that you will one day have does have a cost. The question is, will you take your Heavenly Father up on what He's offering you today to say, you know what? I'll be with you as you count the cost. I'll be with you through thick and thin, through celebration and through loss. I'll be with you and I'll journey with you. Because counting the cost means you are looking at your dreams, you're looking at your future, you're looking at the person that He's created to be. You're looking at the business that you want to create, the ministry that you want to start. You're looking at the family that you want to have, the kids that you want to raise, the spouse that you're praying for. You're looking at the property that you want to acquire. You're looking at the mission field that you want to take. Every single one of those has a cost. There's going to be moments in that journey that are really hard. Will you count the cost? There's going to be moments in your journey that cause for great celebration. And around that table, celebrating is going to be beautiful. And I want to make sure that you have friends and family to celebrate with. And I also want you to make sure that in those moments that trials come and heartache comes and rejection comes, that you also have people around your table. I want to remind you that in Jesus, you have a friend that sticks closer than a brother. And I also want to remind you, remember that table that was in my old house with the divots in it and the lumps? Woodworkers would call that character. In my new house, with a table that's larger, smoother surface, but actually has less value from the outside, looks more expensive. I think too often we're not willing to pay the price for character. We're not willing to lean into the cost of the table and allow life to create some beautiful characteristics in your story. And I want to encourage you that the lumps in your table, the character marks and the flaws that you see are actually worth it. That if you're sitting in a place like I was that day after we had moved and transitioned and said, I give up. that actually counting the cost again, go back again and count the cost. It's worth it. You're worth it. Because one day when you're standing in the middle of a dream fulfilled, you're going to look at your current table, the artwork of your life, your history, and your current, and you're going to say, wow, that is beautiful, imperfections and all. And I picture your friend sitting right next to you, Jesus, the friend that sticks closer than a brother, right next to you, admiring your table with you. And he's going to look at that table with you and say, I was with you every step of the way. And in the process of living a life fully alive by counting the cost of your current table, you are going to come out encouraged, stronger, and better for your tomorrow. So count the cost. Don't throw in the towel. It's a beautiful thing. I want you to live a life fully alive.